This is going to be our warm-up, which is just going to go over our solving. So reviewing our factoring, completing the square, and quadratic formula. So I want you to keep that in mind because this is I want you to think about what method you're choosing each time to solve these. So in reviewing our methods, we have factoring. So we have whenever well, geez, sorry guys, my screen's being glitchy. So we have factoring. So we have two ways for this. We have when A equals 1 and when A does not equal 1, and that's whenever we have to do our slide and divide. We have completing the square. We have the quadratic, and then we also, and I'm going to kind of put this with, it is separate, but we have the, I didn't leave myself room. The perfect square root. So that's if they're perfect square roots. Okay, so let's kind of go over this. So on this first one, I want you to think of what method you're going to pick and what's going to happen. So number one, our A value is 1. So you could do completing the square because our B value is even. This is not going to be a perfect square. But if we wanted to factor this, are there two factors that multiply together to get 16 but added together equals 4? There's not. So we're going to just pick complete the square. Now, if you put the quadratic formula, that is also an option. So you should still come up with the same answer. Oh my goodness, I cannot write right now, you guys. Okay. So to complete the square, we're going to add 16 to both sides. I'm just going to start it up here since I don't feel like rewriting it down here. Minus 4x equals 16. We then have to find our new b value. To find your new b value, you take your new c, take 4 divided by 2 squared. You get negative 2 squared, which equals 4. So we're going to add 4 to both sides. So we get x squared minus 4x plus 4 equals 20. Then you factor this. So whenever you factor, you should get negative 2 and negative 2. So those should all be the same with completing the square. So since they're the same, this is where we can do negative 2 squared equals 20. Then we square root both sides. We get x minus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 20. Then we add 2. The 2 does not get combined with the 20, and it doesn't go under the radical with the 20. So keep that in mind. So once we add the 2, we know the 20 is not a perfect. But we have to think, can we simplify this? You can do 4 and 5, so you get 2 square root of 5. So your final answer would be x equals plus or minus 2 square root of 5 plus 2. So if you do the quadratic, you would also get the same answer. So did this method work? Yes. And that's because we really thought about it at the beginning. We didn't just try a method and realize it didn't work whenever we did that method. Next one, we have 2x squared minus 2x minus 11. So we can't do complete the square because the A value is not 1. And you can't divide out a 2 from every term. We could always do the quadratic. They're not perfect squares. You could also think about factoring if you wanted to do slide, factor, divide, and swing. But if you slid the 2 over, you get a 22. And there's no 2 factors for 22 that would equal a 2. So we're going to go with the quadratic formula. So it's already in standard form, so we're going to identify our A, our B, and our C. Our A is 2, our B is negative 2, and our C is negative 11. So our next step is we're going to plug it into our quadratic formula. So we're going to get x equals negative or b, so it's going to be a comma positive 2 plus or minus the square root. B squared, so negative 2 squared minus 4 times my a times my c all over 2 times my a. So we're going to get x equals 2 plus or minus the square root. Okay, negative 2 squared is going to give me 4. And then negative 8 times negative 11 is going to give me a positive 88. And then divide by 4. You're then going to get x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 92 divided by 4. So I want to think about this radical. Can you simplify 92? So I'm going to start with 92 divided by 4. You get 23 and 4, and you know there's nothing that can go into 23. So 92, you can get 4 times 23. So you get 2 square root of 2. So we're going to replace that. So you get x equals 2 plus or minus 2 square root of 2 divided by 4. Now remember, if you have these 3 numbers right here, you can simplify. We can divide all of them by 2. So we're going to get 1 plus or minus 1 square root of 2 divided by 2. And that's going to give us our final answer. So did this method work? Yes. The quadratic will always work. There should not be a problem with that. Okay, next one. We could do completing a square. We could do the quadratic formula because we have our a value is 1 and our b value is an even number. But I want you to think, let's throw out factoring this time because we've done completing the square and quadratic. So are there 2 multiples to get 45 that you could get 9? Or that you could get 4? So 45, you have 5 and 9. That could give you 4. So we're going to try factoring. We're going to see how it works. Now, if you're like, I just want to do quadratic, you can do quadratic, you guys. So your a value is 1, so you can start with what plus what equals negative 4. And what times what equals negative 45. And you guys can always start with this. And if you realize it doesn't work, you can go to the quadratic or completing the square. So you should do negative 9 and a positive 5. So you're going to get x minus 9. Now x plus 5. Now we're solving. So we actually have to set these equal to 0. So I'm going to have x minus 9 equals 0 and x plus 5 equals 0. Add 9. X equals 9. X equals negative 5. So those are going to be my 2 factors. So did this method work? Yes. Last one. So what method do we do? Number 1, we can't do completing the square. We could do quadratic. Let's see if we can do factoring with this one. So you can factor out a 5 because you can factor out a GCF and you get x squared minus 9. This is going to be one of your perfects. So what plus what equals 0? And what times what equals negative 9? You would get negative 3 and positive 3. So altogether, you're going to have your 5, x minus 3, x plus 3. So this one could actually be your square root method also. So you're going to have 5 equals 0, which is not true. X minus 3 equals 0, and x plus 3 equals 0. Add 3. X equals 3. Subtract 3. X equals negative 3. So those are my 2 solutions. So with all these, you guys realize we are solving them now. So even if we factor, we got to set them equal to 0. So let me know if you guys have any questions over this. And you guys, I want you guys to work on any missing homework assignments you guys have. I think everybody has one. Email me if you guys have any questions over this.